Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Beyond Limits podcast. I have a very incredible, exciting guest for you today who really defines living a limitless life and living beyond limits. So, welcome, Cassie Howard, to the Beyond Limits show.
Hi, thank you for having me. I didn't even realize until we booked this that this was the name of your podcast. This is the most perfect name.
That's why I said when you were looking for a podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, I could have
So
like Cassie
perfect.
and Beyond Limits. I'm like, you're called the Limitless Woman. For those of you who don't know, she's called like the Limitless Woman. I'm like, yes. And to me, you really exemplify everything about living beyond limits. And I really want to start off by really you diving into your journey, starting off from like the couponing to like having this 8-figure company and brand. I mean, like, wow, like everyone needs to hear this story because that is beyond limits. So dive in, let us kind of know your journey.
Yeah, so it actually started with when I was in the adult industry because that's really where I learned a lot about business. So I was in that industry for years, maybe 5 years, something like that, 5, 6 years. And when I was in that industry, I learned a lot about personal branding. I didn't realize at the time that I was learning about personal branding, but looking back, that's what it was for me, and really about being authentic. And that was a key thing that I took into the coaching business many years later. But it started there, and it was great. It was a really great experience. It's just eventually it became too much like work, I think is the best way to describe it. Like it was too much all the time. And so what actually ended up happening that made me then leap into the couponing space was that I had racked up a whole bunch of debt because I was buying all these things for all my photo shoots and all this. Like I had no idea how to manage the amount of money that was coming in through that business. And so I racked up a whole bunch of debt, and I had started to panic about money. And I started to research coupons. Like, let me just clip coupons because I could barely pay for groceries. I'm like, this will help me save on groceries. And then I started to realize how much fun it was to hunt for these deals, to find special deals, use special coupons, like all these codes. Like it was a whole other world. And I really started to love it. And so I ended up selling my adult business, and I sold it for exactly what my debt was. So I was able to wipe all of my debt away. So I was starting fresh, and I was like, I am going to be more mindful with money. So starting with being mindful of how I was spending money. So coupons, frugal, really diving into like a frugal living kind of life. And I was in that business for about 7 years. And it wasn't meant to be a business at first. It was just me trying to make ends meet. But then I started to have people, because I would document my hauls, my shopping hauls, and I would share them. People like, how did you do that? How did you get that thing for free or that thing for whatever? And I started to share more deals and more deals and more deals. And then I was like, I am doing this all day long. I better be getting paid for it if I'm doing this all day long. And so I started with Google ads, Google advertising, and then I did affiliate marketing and from Amazon links and stuff like that. And I was making really great money there. I ended up at like 10K a month was like our highest month. But because it was so much work, I had to hire people to help me post all of these deals that we were finding, to the point where I ended up making like $1,000 a month myself personally. I was like, I can't survive on this. And I did that for a little while. And then eventually I started to post more about making money through my blog. So the ads were starting to make money, the affiliate links were starting to make money. So I was talking more about making money as opposed to just saving money. And at some point, someone had said to me, you should be a business coach. Like you should teach people how to have a business like this, like a blog that makes money. I don't know what the heck this is, what this whole business coach thing is. So I Googled it and found this whole other universe that I had no idea that even existed. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, that's it. Like that's where I'm supposed to be. And honestly, it was like within a day. Like it was almost immediate that I quit the coaching business and went 100% into the coaching world. And the rest is history.
And so what year was that? What year did you like stop the blog couponing? You went into like full coaching.
That was February 2015.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like almost
Yeah.
10 years ago. It's
Yeah,
insane.
almost a decade. It's crazy. It feels like yesterday, but it also feels like I've been doing this forever, like both at the same time.
And I love how you said it was almost in a day, because I find a lot of people, they hesitate to make moves. And we're going to dive into this because you always speak about making big bold moves, and I feel like we can see even in your journey you've been doing that since day one. You didn't kind of like tiptoe into it. You weren't like, well, maybe. You're like, okay, no, this is it, let's move, let's go. You put one thing down and you were kind of like all in, full steam ahead.
Yeah, and that's it's so important to me that if I see something I want, I go get it. Like, what am I waiting for exactly? Like, what is the point of me waiting? Me being afraid, like, oh, it might not work. Well, it'll definitely not work if I don't go for it. Like I've got to at least move. So I've always been about big bold moves. I didn't realize that that was even my thing until I looked back on my journey and was like, wow, that is pretty much what I did. I made a decision and then I went for it, but I didn't just dip my toe in. Like I jumped in head first and was like, if I'm going to do this, I might as well really actually go for it.
And you've kept kind of like going for it over and over and over and over again. It's not like you make one
Yeah.
move once and it's like, oh, that's
Yeah.
it. It's like, well, no, now you did it. Now we're going to do it again and again and
Yeah.
again and again. And I feel
Yeah.
like, well, you can tell me, but that's kind of probably what's brought you to where you are. It's your willingness
Hmm.
to do that, not just once when you first jumped in, but your growth is probably a reflection of how you lead yourself and how you jump first in tougher times, in times where maybe you're going against the grain, doing things people have never done before. Yes.
100%. Yeah, and I see it now as is like an obsession. It's an obsession for me, like what's the next big bold move? Because if I'm not making big bold moves, I'm bored. Like I'm grateful for where I'm at. I'm grateful for what the last big bold move led me to, but now what? Like I'm always in the now what with gratitude, always in the now what, so that I'm continuing to move.
Do
It's
you
so
think
easy to
that,
just be comfortable and stay where you're at, you know?
yeah, that reminds me, I think a post either last week or in the last like couple of weeks that you did, oh, you say you want it all, but then as long as that's not anything uncomfortable. It was something like
Exactly.
right along those
Yeah.
lines. Your
Yeah.
post always makes me laugh because like you're speaking my language. It's like that sass and that color for like, oh, you say you want it, but like, what are you
Mhm.
doing?
Yeah.
And with that, do you think that's something that someone is born with? Do you think like people are like, you either are that way where you have that like entrepreneurial hunger where like you want to go the next one, or is that something you think you kind of developed?
I definitely think you're either born an entrepreneur or you're not born an entrepreneur. But I also believe that if you're an entrepreneur, that you can evolve into a bigger riskier taking kind of entrepreneur, because in the beginning it can be scary. You don't know if it's going to work. You're investing lots of your time and energy and money and blood, sweat, and tears, and it's a little scary. But then the more you do it and the more you stay consistent, it is a little bit easier to make big bold moves. But it is always going to be uncomfortable to be an entrepreneur. Always.
So you better just get used to being uncomfortable.
Just get used to it. Like find joy in it. Like anytime I feel uncomfortable, I get excited. Not because I want to feel uncomfortable, but because I know something big is
Could not agree more. I feel like you're reflecting a lot of the things like I say on my own back. I'm like, if you're not like, if you're uncomfortable, congratulations. Like we're doing something new. Like that's when
coming.
you're breaking the mold. That's when you're going to a new level. And even in terms of like complacency, and maybe you can speak to this, because sometimes I've seen even when things are good, well, maybe there's no like reason, to get uncomfortable. It's like, well, if money's already good, like what reason do
Yeah.
I have? You're not making ends meet anymore. It's like you're playing with bigger numbers. It's like, well, there's that other kind of like pull within you to get uncomfortable,
Mhm.
even when you don't quote unquote need to, not
Yeah.
necessarily when you're put in an uncomfortable place where like you have to kind of go for it. How have you kind of use that or like continue to have that kind of momentum even when you quote unquote like need to, and obviously there's like an overflow of money?
Mm. I Number one, I'm just addicted to the chase. So I'm addicted to wanting to go for more, even if I don't need to. Like I'm definitely at the point right now where I could chill out, but I don't want to. Like that would be boring to me. I want to keep going for more. So there's that hunger there. But it's also having bigger dreams. And this was something that
Mm.
I had to learn eventually. It's like, I just want to make enough money to pay my bills. And then I did that. Okay, I just want to make enough money to pay my bills and have, 6 months of expenses in the bank. Okay, I did that. It's like having a bigger and bigger reason for why you're going for more, other than just, I like going for more, because that is not
Mhm.
motivation enough.
Yeah, and so that will kind of like keep moving, and then that's where it kind of becomes limitless. And there, use the limitless
Yeah.
word because there's always something bigger. Whether you want to start a foundation, whether you want to contribute to things like you're building a legacy, like it, I think it
Mm-hmm.
becomes so much more bigger than yourself. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like at those bigger numbers, because
Yeah.
yourself, probably your family's kind of like taken care of, and so at that level, it's like, okay, how can we have a big lasting impact that's probably going to ripple even after you're gone?
Yes, 1000%. And so for me, yes, taking care of my family was first and foremost, and I'm grateful that I've been able to do that. So now it's what is the bigger vision? And so I have certain causes that are really important to me that I donate to, but what is the most important to me more than anything else is animals, and really rescuing animals, and having a safe space for them. Like, I want to have animal sanctuaries all across the country, and like rescue farm animals and things like that. So that is a huge thing for me, which is going to be hundreds of millions of dollars to do it the way that I want to do it. So that right now is the biggest driving force.
I remember, I forget where I first heard you say that, but I remember it and I felt like I could feel the impact of your business way beyond like just that. It's like I could feel energetically like the ripples of like, oh, it's not, and like, not, we're not discounting it anyway, but when you have more of a grander vision for what that business is going to do, apart from the lives you're going to impact within it, it almost like lights that fire for you because that's kind of like a sustained fire momentum that will kind of keep you going when things
Yeah.
either slower or there's an income dip or something else is like you're tapped into the vision. You're not getting distracted by some of the more month to month or week to week things because
Yeah.
you're tapped into that bigger, larger vision of where you know that you're going. And that's like pulling you forward so heavy because like you said, hundreds of millions of dollars, like, all right, we're going, we're not getting distracted by the
Yeah.
month to month or like what's going on now and letting that kind of take you off course.
Yeah, which is what most people do. The fact that they will have one bad month means everything's falling apart. So I might as well just pack it up and like call it a day. Like, it's not working clearly, so I quit. But for me, it's like, even if I have a bad month, it means absolutely nothing. Like, I'm still going to go, like, there's another month coming up. That could be the
Yeah.
biggest month ever. Like, why would I throw all of the momentum away on one bad week or one bad month or one bad day or even one bad year? Like, it doesn't matter. I'm still going to keep going. And because it's not just about me, it makes it so much easier to keep going. Not easy, but easier, because it's, if I quit and I don't end up making the money that I want to make, think about all those animals that aren't going to get saved from my sanctuary. Like, oh, okay,
I don't
okay,
even
I'm
think
back on
I don't know what I think
it.
about. No,
You know?
I can't think about. I'll just get emotional if I think about animals. But I get what you mean.
Yeah,
Like, I get it, but like, that's also not.
I
One
know.
thing I have noticed, and you even mentioning it in your story about like the couponing and you having fun with that, and this is something I've watched you for years now. You always have fun when you sell. I think you probably have one of the most fun that I think anyone has. Like in the industry, in the world, selling. And like I can feel it. You just have so much fun all the time.
Oh,
And I feel like a
thank you.
lot of people don't either have fun when they sell, maybe they're neutral, or they find it icky, or there's pressure, or there's heaviness. Can you
Mm.
speak to? Because I feel like you were mentioning it even in the couponing. You've just always had fun. How do
Yeah.
you keep that fun? Can you speak to having fun while you're selling? Uh, and even like I know right now we're recording this Black Friday, and like I've never seen anyone
Oh
have
my
fun
gosh.
the way you do.
I'm like,
It's
I'm I'm so in it this year, like more than ever before. Like, I told my team, I was like, okay, I've got two back-to-back podcasts, and they're like, and then it's Black Friday. I'm like, yes, it's Black Friday week. We're so excited. But yeah, I actually really hated sales in the beginning. Like, really, it did make me feel icky. It made me feel like I was doing something wrong when I was selling. And it made me really think about, well, the only way I would be doing something wrong is if I was trying to convince somebody to buy something that they don't need or want. Am I doing that? No. So then how could this possibly be bad? The only thing that I'm selling is something that can help them to create this limitless life that they say they want. So how could that possibly be bad? And it was like this wake up moment for me of like, oh yeah, I guess that's true. Like, how could it be bad? And so I actually see it now as like, not selling is selfish. Not selling is selfish. Not selling is selfish, because you have so much knowledge inside of you, so much wisdom, that if you share it with another person, it could change their entire life. Like, how selfish of you to keep that to yourself, you know? That's how I see it. So it's so easy for me now, but the fun aspect came in much later. I didn't know sales could be fun. I got to the point where I realized that selling was a good thing, but I didn't, for much, for a long period of time, I didn't realize that I could do that and have fun with it. So what it is for me now, it's all about innovation. It's all about looking at what everybody else is doing and saying, okay, and now let's do it backwards. Like, I want to do it in a completely different way. I love to break things apart and put them back together again in a way that nobody's done before. That is fun for me. So it's always finding these unique ways to do things.
And I think it also makes it fun for obviously everyone else, like your audience, people watching, because it becomes so much more fun and they see it different and they're like, oh, that's something different that I haven't seen before. And I think a lot of times people can get trapped in either what worked before, what someone else is doing, and they don't allow themselves to perhaps innovate or have as much fun if they're, not doing it as so and so is doing it. In your journey, have you always felt like you've been like innovative and having fun and like going against the grain, or is that kind of something you had to learn of like, oh, I'm going to do it different even when so and so is doing it this way?
Yeah, so I think it's always been in my blood, but there have definitely been times where I've suppressed it thinking I had to. So, especially when I first came into the coaching space, I was like, okay, I don't know this industry. So, I'm going to hire somebody. I hired a coach right away. And I was like, this is somebody who's been in this industry for a while. She's made really great money. She knows what she's doing. I'll do what she's doing. I'll like take her advice and do what she tells me to do. And so I started to do some of the things that she had suggested, or things that I saw her do, or things I saw other coaches do. And some of those things did work in the sense that they made money, or they grew my audience, or they did something beneficial, but it always felt off. It felt like it worked, but I kind of don't like that it worked. I wish it didn't work. Like, there was something about it. It's like doing something I didn't really want to do to have an outcome. And I was like, I don't think I can do this like long term. Like, I'm going to quit at some point if I have to keep doing it in these different ways that don't feel exciting for me or don't feel good to me. And so it was probably a year into my coaching business that I was like, what if I just, I remember saying this to my mom, who had no idea I had even switched my companies, and now I'm in this new one. I was like, what if I just decided to fuck shit up? She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, what if I just do it so different that people can't help but go, who the heck is this chick and what is she doing? And who does she think she is doing it like that? I was like, what if I just do that? And she's like, that sounds like you. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that. And that was it for me. And everything kind of, grew from there.
And I think when you have that kind of power and that audacity to do the like, who does she think she is? It becomes, who is she? And people want to know, like, they go, who do you think this? And they're like, oh, okay, but who is she? And then they're intrigued. Whether they love you or they hate you, they're still intrigued and they're still watching.
Yeah.
Which is what you want at the end of the day.
Yeah.
What recommendations do you feel like you can give someone who feels like they want to have more fun, but they feel either like all these limitations, right? We're talking about limits, all these stories or conditioning in their head that they have to do it this way. Like, is it a permission piece? Is it something that like a line or something that for you landed that like, oh, this is like the thing that allowed me to fully let go and have fun and say like, fuck it, let's just do it.
Yes. So there was actually one situation that was the situation that just changed everything in my business, where I had a coach at the time. It was actually a sales coach because like I said, I wasn't good at sales. And she told me about launching. And she said, if you want to launch this program that I told her about, she's like, you want to give yourself at least 6 months to get it out there. And I was like, why? I know what it is. Why can't I sell it now? She's like, well, you need to prep the launch. You need to do this. It's like this really long, drawn out launch process. And I followed it. I did everything. I even paid for like a sales page design, copywriting, ads, like all these things. And at the end of the day, I launched. I was so excited. I'm like, I'm going to be so rich. And I think I sold like 3 spots. And I was like, I lost money on this. And I lost all that time because she said, you're not allowed to talk about anything else. Like no other offers, just this one. I was like, all that time I wasted. And so it was that moment where I said, I'm doing it different. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to do shorter launches and I'm going to sell multiple things, because during that 6-month period, I had other ideas, other offers, other things I wanted to put out there. She's like, no, you can't. You got to get people like excited about this one thing. Like, I'm just selling multiple things. And that was the start of my selling multiple things at once, was that exact moment. And that changed my entire business.
And I feel like that's something you speak to a lot. I think I've even gotten something, how to sell multiple things at once. I think you even have like a
That's
class
the
that I've
master
taken.
class. Yeah.
It's called that.
Yeah.
And I feel like people always ask questions to you like, how can you sell multiple things at once? And like, well, you just kind of like, you do what you mean.
You just do.
You sell it. So
yeah.
For you, because you're also very strategic. And if I were to think about, if there was someone like, oh, who's like a strategy queen, I'm like, I think Cassie Howard, like simple strategy, organization structure, flow. And you also did a post recently on like the things that have really impacted your sales. And you're like, I sold more like in different places. And like, it sounds simple to all these things, like you sell more. So when you have these ideas, like you said, flowing through you and you have this idea to launch it, how do you balance that strategy with like, I have this idea and like run with it? Now you probably know how to discern, but for someone listening, how do they know like when to run and when to like be more strategic and like space things out, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so it depends on the person, and it also depends on how you want your business to be. Like, you absolutely don't have to sell multiple things if you don't want to. I just like that. I get bored if I'm talking about the same thing for too long. So I like to have different things. But for me, it was always, if you're going to sell multiple things at once, sell different types of things. So they're different offers so that people are interested potentially in all the things, but also don't launch multiple things at once. Like, launch one thing but sell other things that have already been launched. Like that's what made it a lot easier for me. Was I'm launching a mastermind. So, okay, I'm going to launch the mastermind, but I'm also going to mention my inner circle. I'm also going to mention private coaching because there's spots available. I'm also going to mention this program that just happened, and I'm celebrating, all the breakthroughs and things in that program. So now I'm technically selling 4 things in one day, but it doesn't take that much time and effort.
And they are different. It's like going to the store. You can buy apples and oranges. It's like
Yeah.
if you go to the store and they just have apples and you don't want apples, and someone's like, well, you didn't offer me anything else. You didn't offer me any oranges or pears or like what.
Yeah, so they
and
don't buy
then
anything.
they'll leave because you only offered apples. And they're like,
exactly.
well, I want apples. That's not what I'm looking for.
Yes. And that's how I explain it to people. Yeah, exactly that. It's like you go in a grocery store, they're not just like, here you go, you can buy this or nothing, get out. It's like there's so many options. So I want it to be like a grocery store.
And I feel like that fun and that lightness comes through in your passion for all these different things. And I remember this story has always stuck with me, and I forget where you told it. Maybe it was Millionaire Musings, but it was the Costco example. Now, whenever I go to Costco and I see someone doing a demo, I think of you, I think of Cassie, of like the Vitamix, and you were watching the guy do the sales demo for the Vitamix. And you're like, I just want to watch this because the way he's selling it, like, I want to buy another Vitamix. You're like, I already have one, but now I want to buy another one.
Yeah.
And I feel like now I pay attention to that because it's so interesting that the way you sell, you can technically sell something that someone already has and they want to buy it. Maybe they've already taken a course on content, or they've taken a course on, who knows, breastfeeding. It doesn't matter, but they'll want to take it from you because you're that Costco Vitamix guy that was like enthusiastic, like passionate about it, excited. And I think you even mentioned someone else who was like at another stand. They're like, this is what this is. And you're like,
boring.
You could have maybe really wanted it, but it was boring. Yeah. And then they lost you versus you would have like bought the Vitamix twice. Can you kind of like speak more to this? Because I think it was just so funny. And I think people don't understand that like people will buy something that they've probably bought before on that same topic from someone else because of how you sell it.
Yeah, it's so funny that you use that example because I was at Costco yesterday and they were doing demos for Vitamix, and I was like, oh my gosh, no, don't look. I have like 7 Vitamixes at this point. So like, no. But yeah, it really is like I could buy the same thing from someone else. I could go to a store and buy a Vitamix, you know, easy. I could go order it on Amazon, not even have to deal with humans. Like there it is, it's at my door. But it was the passion for me. And I do not see that very often, especially in the online space. Like people are like, here's my thing, here's what it's about, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, payment link. I'm not gonna buy. Like I'm just not. Like there's gotta be something behind it. I've gotta feel your genuine excitement for this offer, not just I have an offer, so I should probably sell it. It's like the way that I sell is kind of with the energy of like you're crazy if you don't buy this. Like you're crazy. Like this is going to be the next best thing. Like not this is we're going to have so much fun together and we're going to do amazing things, and like you got to be here. Like that's the kind of energy, as opposed to here's my program, it'll teach you how to write content and it will make you money. Like it's just boring. People feel it from you. Like the way that you sell, they can feel it. The words that you say, how you say it, whether you're on camera and they can like actually see and feel the energy that way, or it's a written post or an email, like there is feeling behind it. And most people are going to buy based on how they feel during the sales process, as opposed to what you're saying during the sales process.
And I love that because I feel like you could say those words like this is the best thing ever, but if
Yeah.
you don't actually like believe this is
You
the
don't
best
feel
thing
it.
ever, whether you're writing or saying it,
Yeah.
it's not going to. Versus I can even feel when I'm reading or something like she knows this is the best thing ever. She knows
Yeah.
that her Black Friday is the biggest like party there is on the internet.
Yeah. Did you see my Facebook post about that? Because my team was like, "Are you sure you want to say it like that?"
Oh no,
Did you see that?
well, I see a lot of posts. I'm in the group as well. I'm not sure, but I
Okay.
just feel like yours is always the biggest
Yeah.
party. Like every year, like
Yeah.
Cassie has the biggest Black Friday party.
And that's always my thing. Like I'm genuinely excited. I'm not doing it from this place of like I need to make sure I have the best thing and everybody only comes to my Black Friday stuff. It's like how can we have even more fun this year? Like that's always the question. How can we make this even more crazy, because I like to do wild crazy things, but also how can we just have fun? Like myself, my team, everyone who comes and participates, whether you buy something or you don't buy something, it doesn't matter. Like you're going to have fun.
Now, with the having fun, is this something where you just exist in this state now? Or is it like, are there times where you have to get yourself into getting excited or having fun? Do you know what I mean? Like if you're
Yeah.
feeling an off day, or like how do you either consistently stay kind of in that zone of the passion, the excitement versus not? Or like if you put yourself back in, or maybe you're just always there, I'm not sure, but like how would you
Yeah.
answer that?
I definitely slip out for sure. Like I'm human. I'm going to have days where I'm like, fuck this shit. I don't want to do anything. But it comes back really quickly because I remember why I'm doing it. And I remember why I decided to launch that particular offer. Oh, yeah, I was excited about it. So why am I not excited anymore? Because I'm in a bad mood today. Okay, well that's not that's not doesn't mean the excitement's gone. It just means I'm in a bad mood today. Like whatever. I didn't sleep much, so I'm cranky. Okay, well I still love the offer. So on the days where it's like it's a harder day, I don't necessarily feel like all high vibe and super excited over the top. I still sell because it's just what I do, but it's not necessarily going to be me selling with over the top excitement. It's going to be more just straightforward, me reminding you of the offers or something like that. But in me continuing to show up and speak and share my work and put the offers out there, that's what actually brings the excitement back.
It's like that continuation, that momentum doesn't really stop, even if you're not like over the top every
Yeah,
single day with that excitement.
exactly. That's why it's so important that you are genuinely excited about what you're creating.
And you're the offers, everything, like whatever you're
Everything.
saying, you feel also probably embodied in it, in integrity. Because if you feel any kind of wonky way, that's gonna come through. I love how
For
you're
sure.
speaking about the energetics, even though you're a lot about strategy as
I know.
well. Maybe I'm just
Yeah.
bringing that out of you because I'm all about
Yeah.
energetics. Speaking of exciting, I'd love to talk about your move into your fantastic house, because when I think about living beyond limits and all the excitement, you've had so much excitement. I feel like I was so excited for you. I'm like watching like the house and like the way you've styled it, and it is beautiful. Can you kind of like speak to your excitement and like being able to not only purchase this house, but renovate it, design it the way you want to, have your family there? I'm not sure if this was always like a part of like Toronto that you wanted to live in. Can you kind of speak to that? Because I feel like that was been a big thing for you in 2024 was your house.
Huge. Yeah. So I think I'll start with the area because for me, this, not this exact area, but around this area, I always used to drive around here thinking, look at all these rich people with these big like mansions in Toronto, like these multi-million dollar houses. Like one day I'm going to live next door to one of them. One day they're going to be my neighbors. And at that time, I was probably making like, a couple $100,000 a year. Like it was not in the cards for me at that point, but it was me just kind of seeing it and going, I think I'll have that. Thank you. I'm going to walk towards that. And so I love this area because it's a really good energy kind of space. Like the neighbors that we have met anyway are really good people. And every single person that I have met is either a doctor or a lawyer, which I found interesting. So it's like there's people I can go to if I need things. But like it's just such a good space. It's got good schools. Like I just love the area. And so I always knew I wanted to live here, but if I'm being honest, I didn't think I would because the houses were a lot of money. And I didn't think I would ever make that amount of money. But it was still in the back of my head like, I'm going to end up there one day. Maybe I'll get a house for free. Who knows? Maybe the money doesn't need to come into play. You never know. So I'm open. And I drove here like maybe once a month or something because it was like about half an hour, 45 minutes from where I lived at the time. And I would just drive around and I would just look at the houses and I would point out things that I liked. Like, oh, I like the garage on that house. I like the landscaping on this house. And I would kind of build my own dream house in my head. And then we ended up getting a house that's basically on the opposite side of the street from where we are now. And we lived there and we would go for our evening walks, my husband and I. We'd go for our walks and we would walk past this house. And I always would stop at this house because they had beautiful landscaping. And I would go, I really like the landscaping at this house. He's like, yeah, I know you say that every time. I'm like, I really like the landscaping. Imagine we had landscaping like this and it was just like a joke, right? And then we saw the house went for sale. And we're like, let's go. We found it like an hour after it was posted. We're like, let's go today. Like, call them, make sure we get in today. And we went and like later that evening. And then the next day we put our bid on the house and it was accepted right away. I was like, holy shit, the house with the nice landscaping. We get to live there. But it was all in my mind years ago. I'm going to live there. Like it was certainty. I'm going to live there in this area somewhere. I'm going to live there with no clue how, but also I didn't even really have a desire to know how. It was more a curiosity, like I wonder how. But now that we're here, it's and being able to renovate it the way that we wanted to, so it's perfect. It's like every time I walk into those spaces that we renovated because we only did part of it, I'm like, I created that. I did that. And I did that for this particular reason. Like this room we have at the front of the house, that's where I do a lot of my journaling. It's where I take a lot of pictures. It's where I drink my coffee. Like there were intentions behind every single thing we did. And it makes it even more meaningful than just, we have a nice house in Toronto.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love this story. And I remember you talking about like the walks you used to take with your fiance or your husband. And it would remind me of when I would walk with my fiance in like Forest Hill. I don't know where you live, but I love Forest Hill in Toronto.
Yeah.
And I walk through it. I'm like, I like this tree. I like this like
Yeah.
structure. I like this. So I'm on my way.
You're there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Maybe we'll be neighbors one
And
day.
you never know. And I also remember you would speak about, and I feel like that manifestation, I'm going to call it a manifestation type walk with the houses, is also similar to, the stories you would tell of going to the Four Seasons and overhearing like the business conversations and like surrounding yourself with that energy and listening to like people talk about like big money, about like deals and stuff like that. So I feel like you've always been immersing yourself along your journey, kind of like in that next higher level to normalize it to your system and to like really anchor into that certainty of
For
it's
sure.
already done. It's already here.
Yeah, for sure. And I didn't even realize how important that was until the Four Seasons. And for me, it was, I just like the Four Seasons, but I can't afford to stay there. So, okay, I'll go there and I'll hang out in the lounge and I'll work on my laptop and I'll like buy like a coffee or something because it's cheap. And I'll do that. And then one time a friend and I were like, why don't we just splurge and get lunch at like the hotel thing? And it was like a Wednesday at 2 p.m. And the whole place, I kid you not, was filled with suits, like just men in suits everywhere. And we're like, okay, I guess we'll sit at the bar because those were the only spots available. And there's still men in suits at the bar. And I always have loved to eavesdrop because I learn a lot from eavesdropping. And so I'm eavesdropping these conversations and they're talking about like multi-$100 million deals. Like, what? They're like right beside me. I'm like, I really want to ask questions, but then they'll know that I'm eavesdropping. I can't do that. So I just surround myself with it. And that became routine for me. I started to go to the Four Seasons more and more, specifically on weekdays around 2 p.m. And I would hear these conversations more and more and more and more and more. And the next thing you know, I was staying in the hotel. I could actually afford to stay in the hotel. And it's one of my favorite manifestations is that.
And I do say, I think the Four Seasons is also just exceptional. I remember when you started posting about it back in the day, I started going to Four Seasons, and like the service at Four Seasons is just, it's
Top
different
tier.
than any other 5-star hotel in Toronto. Like, I'm sorry. It's just,
Yeah.
it's impeccable.
Yeah.
And every time I go, I think of you. There's all these times I think of Cassie whenever I go places because of your service. I should tell the Four Seasons, like, I'm here because like Cassie
Give me
like
my
recommended it. And I
referral.
feel, but I feel like I had that same journey. Like when I started going, like I would go and I would just drink the latte because I couldn't afford to get the rooms. And I remember the first time, I think it was February 2021 or 2020, and the first time I could afford to like stay the night, and they had upgraded me to like the Yorkville suite, even though like bought like the base room, and it was like just me and myself for the night, and I had the tub and the service. And I was like, oh my god, this gets to be life. And like you just growing and growing. And yes, I feel like you've, whether you notice or not, it's kind of me sharing how your stories have inspired my growth along the way too. And I feel like there's so many little similarities and little like nuggets you can pick from your journey that will help someone no matter where they're at, no matter like if they're, trying to make their first 6 figures or 6-figure months, like it kind of doesn't matter. There's so many juicy nuggets in here. And I'd love to kind of like close it out. If there was like 1 or 2 things or pieces of advice or recommendations to help a woman like really live beyond limits, whether it's something you see often, something that you just want to like drop, something you just feel like in your body, in your heart, you're like, I just wish more women knew this or heard this, or whatever you want to land.
It's perfect that we were talking about being around people like this and surrounding yourself with what you want, because that would be the message for me is get yourself close to people who are doing big, wild, crazy, audacious things and just immerse yourself. Like if you can get into close proximity paid spaces, amazing. But even if you can't, follow them on social media. Like try to listen to their conversations in whatever way that you can. Like listen to what people are talking about, because when you do, you start to realize the potential that's there for you. Like I didn't know that you could make this kind of money, and all I have to do to make that kind of money is talk about things I was talking about anyway, and it gets to be fun, and I get to, like, what? And the only reason that I went for it is because I started to pay attention to people who were doing that exact thing, and I started to see it as being possible for me. So just get as close to as many people doing big things as you can, and that alone has enough to shift things for you.
You're right, because like success leaves clues, and I feel like even if you're just immersing, watch and then like implement what they're doing. Because even if you were just to get curious and just like be very observant and watch, notice and implement, you would probably be shocked as to like what you can gain just by like not like, yes, immersing, but like actually paying attention. And like when you see how this person moves, how they act, how they respond, and then you go and you do it, that implementation, I feel like people can blow their minds, but they can notice just by being curious and observing other people. And then of course, getting as close proximity as you can.
Yeah, and really the identity of it all too, like knowing it's not even necessarily, okay, this person is having this kind of success doing this kind of thing, so I'll just do that kind of thing. It's not that. It's more like you said, like pay attention to how they do things. Pay attention to what they say. Pay attention to their actual embodiment of the things that they're teaching. That is the biggest key.
Yeah. Oh, I have absolutely loved talking to you, Cassie. Thank you so much for joining us on the Beyond Limits podcast. Where can everyone find you, immerse themselves in your energy? Because now they're going to want to. Yeah, where can they find you?
I'm all over, but I think the best place is probably Instagram. That's my favorite place to hang out. So you'll see the most of me there.
And we'll, of course, leave all of Cassie's links down below. Thanks again so much for joining us. Go out, have fun while selling. You cannot now not have fun while selling after
That's
this
right.
episode. Immerse yourself in different energies, have fun, celebrate, and I'm excited to see you in the next episode. Bye.